All right. Yeah, I've been wanting to do this. The Frankists. This is the Jewish satanic cult, basically. I think. Um, but to be honest, I only heard about these through Candice Owens, and no offense to the Candice Owens fans, I have been watching Candice Owens. I think she's going crazy. But one thing she did point out is the Frankists, which makes more sense why this group, because I think without a doubt the American and British elite is satanic. Now, why would you, if you was a satanic organization, want religious Jews? Religious Jews aren't gonna side with you, but these will, because you're basically the same type of person. A Frankist will. Maybe this is the explanation for the USS Liberty. That maybe it was just one Frankist in control that day, because I'm pretty sure the pilots said on that day, "Look, that's America." I'm pretty sure they said 3 times to the radio back, and just one guy said, "Nah, hit the boat." But the Israeli pilots was like, "That's America. Well, that's American. That's American," and he still was like, "Do it." Um, yeah, maybe this is the thing behind what is, yeah, and it's not Jews. It's a small. It's like blaming Christians for Satanists, basically blaming the Jews for the Frankists. Like, Christians aren't responsible for what devil worshippers do. But yeah, anyway, let's go.
Sabbatai Zevi declared himself to be the Jewish Messiah in the year 1666. This false Messiah led the largest Messiah movement in Jewish history and attracted more than half the population of European Jews. How did he do it? By promising to return the Jews to their ancestral homeland in Palestine. Sabbatai Zevi made everything that was holy.
This is the thing as well. That doesn't mean that Israel is built off of Frankists, because he could have just, a bit like what Muhammad did, if you listen to the history of Muhammad, but he could have just kind of felt the way Jewish people, which way the wind was blowing in the Jewish world. A bit like someone in our country now could get in power by just jumping on the back of the immigrant thing, just saying, "I'm going to deport all the immigrants." They'll probably get elected into power because it's how the people feel. So if you just had a sense of that and you played into that, you could get in power and do what you want. Maybe that's where like you're saying that the Frankists are the reason there's an Israel. But maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just that they got support from the people by saying something that the Jewish people already wanted. They wanted to return to their homeland, and this guy just said, "We should return to our homeland," and everyone went, "Yeah," but he knew what the mood was anyway.
Unholy. He rejected the rules of the Jewish holy books and every standard of Jewish decency. There would be no more guilt or sin or right or wrong. No more sexual taboos, no more 10 Commandments, no more fasting. Instead, there would be feasting. Sabbatai Zevi's immoral leadership finally fell from grace when the Sultan of Turkey threatened him with torture unless he converted to Islam. Sabbatai converted to Islam, but he brought his infectious evil theology with him. 1 century later, Jacob Frank proclaimed himself to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi and the living Messiah for all Jews.
I just want to say that as well for the people that are pro-Islam. When Islam does take over, like you guys obviously want, that is the 3 options you get from Islam. You convert, you either pay a tax that specifically says humbles you, so a tax that lets you know you're defeated, or off with your head.
Not even Sabbatai Zevi was as evil as Jacob Frank and his disciples. Jacob Frank rejected traditional Judaism. He reversed the truth and told his followers, since we can't all be saints, let's all be sinners. The best way to imitate God, said Frank, is to cross every boundary, transgress every taboo, and mix, as God did, the sacred with the profane. Orgies, incest, rape, and sexual intercourse with children, including sodomy on young boys, were no longer sinful. In 1773, Jacob Frank traveled to Frankfurt, Germany, the birthplace of the Illuminati. That's where he formed an unholy alliance with Adam Weishaupt and Mayor Amschel Rothschild's banking dynasty. The ambition of the Rothschild dynasty was to win control of the world's gold, central banks, and wealth. The Rothschilds sent John Jacob Astor, Jacob Schiff, and Paul Warburg to America, where they influenced the privatization of the Federal Reserve banking system and the dismantling of the American Constitution. The goal of Weishaupt and the Jesuits was to take control of the Vatican and its hierarchy of Catholic clergy. Weishaupt formed the Order of the Illuminati and infiltrated the Freemasonic lodges with his doctrine until every Masonic lodge in every nation accepted it. The Frankist goal was the destruction and replacement of Jewish ethics with a satanic religion based on the exact opposite of Jewish teachings. When this unholy alliance of conscienceless men was seeded, a cancerous war against humanity erupted. With Rothschild financing, Jacob Frank became fabulously wealthy and was put in charge of spreading a Luciferian theology that would be the hidden hand behind future wars and revolutions. Jacob
Frank seems like a bit of an idiot to the other two. Because them two really put themselves in positions of power. He wanted to make Jewish people the opposite of Jews. Definitely they just used him. I bet they thought, yeah, all right, if you want to do that, you crack on, son. Like as if that's going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Frank's followers were called Sabbatean Frankists. They practiced witchcraft and occult rituals, including animal and human sacrifices. Lucifer, they declared, was the true God. The Sabbatean Frankists expanded their movement by masquerading as converts to other religions. They converted to Catholicism and to Islam, where they embedded themselves and spread their Luciferian infection as closeted crypto-Jews. The Frankists traded their wives and daughters with members and with powerful non-members who they needed to seduce into their cult. Jewish professor Gershon Scholem called Jacob Frank one of the most frightening men in Jewish history. By 1776, Orthodox Jewish rabbis and leaders rejected Jacob Frank and the pagan invasion of evil that took hold in 18th century Europe. They declared Jacob Frank and his Luciferian followers to be heretics. Jewish author and historian Dr. Henry Makow has thoroughly researched the Sabbatean Frankist movement.
The Sabbatean Frankists were out and out Satanists. They believe that they have to defy any kind of natural morality, defy any kind of natural law, defy God, and they actually indulge in every kind of depravity as a form of worship, because they worship Satan. And they promoted promiscuity, and that's where our promiscuity today comes from. It's 200 or 300 years old. There's nothing new or avant-garde about it. They promoted incest, they promoted pedophilia, and every kind of sexual depravity.
America's Zionist-owned media falsely reported that Iran's President Ahmadinejad threatened to wipe Israel off the map. This was a mistranslation. What the president of Iran really said is that Israel is occupying Palestine and has no legitimacy on the world map. Traditional Torah Jews and rabbis agree with him. There is speculation that the revolutionary document called the Protocols of Zion is a secret Sabbatean Frankist document. This document embodies 24 protocols which map out a detailed Zionist plan for global control. The protocols, written in the late 1700s, describe in precise detail the world domination plan that is unfolding today. Rabbi Marvin Antelman charges that the world today is ruled by a Sabbatean Frankist satanic cult that has conspired with the Illuminati to destroy all religions and fuse all nations into one.
I have joining me today Dr. and Rabbi Marvin Antelman. Welcome to the show, Rabbi.
Thank you very much for having me here. First of all, let me say this. There are a lot of conspiracy theories out there. I'm not interested in theories. I'm interested in facts. So the scholarship over the years that I've utilized are sources that are impeccable. A man by the name of Shabbatai Tzvi, who was born in 1626 and died in 1676, came along and said, I am the Messiah. And he had a tremendous following. When it was realized that his following was so great, there would be problems, the Sultan gave Shabbatai a choice. Either you die or convert to Islam. So he converted.
This is the thing as well. Everybody wants to talk about the Jewish side of things. No one talks about the actual real history of Islam and what Islam was doing and what had been doing for centuries. If he said 1666, you're talking 632 when Muhammad died. And what happened after that? Why no one talks about that? And what Islam did. They literally conquered Europe. The only reason, like I said before, the only reason Europe isn't, people think Europe is the only is where Christianity come from, is because it's the only place it didn't get conquered by Islam. No one mentions Islam and actually how powerful they are and how influential they are. Also, I have a theory. I've always said that the Western world will die when Britain and America go to war with each other. We always go a war alongside each other, but I don't think any force can rival that partnership. But I got a feeling, what if Frankish Jews that are influencing America, we are 100% bought and paid for by Islam, by Saudis and Qatar and all these Islamic things. We are 100% bought and paid for a country that is Islamic. So you've got a heavy Jewish influence in America, heavy Islamic influence in Britain. What if the goal is to have a proxy war between America and Britain, collapse the West, and then the Jews and Muslims and the East becomes the power again? That's a crazy theory, but yeah, I was thinking that because there's no doubt about it. Like, that's what I mean. In America, you talk about the Jews and how the Jews are influenced. You don't realize how powerful Islam is, and also the horrors that Islam has afflicted on the world. I was watching something last night talking about Islam in India. 80 million Indians, they think, died. It's like, it's hard to kind of gauge because it's the sources are so old, but they think 80 million Indians was put to death by Islam. And the only reason, they said, what was the reason it stopped? And they said the British Empire. He's like, and I don't want to sit here and say that the British Empire conquering the world was good either. But when I read the reason Islam didn't take over India was because of the British, like because of the British invasion. Islam just wasn't strong enough to compete with Britain. That's the only reason why India is Hindu. He's so Hindu and Sikh. So I'm not saying that Britain's, like, nobody conquering the world is good, but actually that was, he's like, as I was reading, I was thinking, well, at least it gives the British colonization a different light, at least, right? But yeah, this is the thing I don't get, is why I think Islam is actually way more powerful than the Jews, because the Jews are always talked about. Islam isn't. People think Islam spread by trade. It didn't. It's spread by death, destruction. The city of 1,001 churches, Armenia, they genocided it. Islam literally killed everybody. True genocide wiped the face of people, and it was known as the city of 1,001 churches. They destroyed every church, and in fact, if you listen to real historians, they will tell you that's where the crusade came from. The crusade wasn't, it gets painted as, oh, war-hungry Christians. Everybody was living peaceful until Christians come along. But the actual opposite is true. The crusades was a reaction to Islamic conquest of Europe and the Holy Land, and destroying churches and things like that. It was a reactionary thing, not a, yeah.
There were about 1 million followers prior to the conversion. When the conversion happened, then there was disillusionment among the Jews. But there were some diehard people who set up different cults of Shabtai Tzvi. And the worst one of them was called the Domeh, which was a secret organization. And the Domeh was based in Turkey and in Salonika. And the Domeh gave rise to these terrible orgies that went on, which became part of...
But that's what I mean, look there. This is the thing as well, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is basically the cause of a lot of the world's problems, basically. They conquered everything, and no one talks about it. No one talks about it, but it says here, but were said to have secretly retained their beliefs. They converted publicly to Islam, but secretly retained their beliefs. And that's because the Islamic conquerors didn't really care. That's what Muslims say now. Islam is not a religion that really truly cares about the heart of the believer. They just want you to believe. Like, they just, it's a submission thing. It's a dominance thing to just have you submit, or don't change but pay a heavy price or die. So you really didn't have much choice. To say that they converted publicly to Islam, it was either that or pay a high price or they died. But again, a philosopher I read said that what he witnessed when his country fell to communism was like, you can force people to say things, but you can't force people to believe the words they're saying. It's like, you can force people to do what you want, but you can't get them ultimately underneath to actually side with you. You can't force that. Yeah, anyway.
Orgies that went on, which became part of the immorality theology of Shabtai Tzvi, corrupted later on. He apostatized himself 10 years before his death. So when he died in 1676, he had these cults doing all kinds of evil.
And the reason that these followers of Shabtai Tzvi were doing evil was because what?
Here's the thing. The Talmud says that the Messiah would come when everybody's good or everybody's bad. There is such a saying in the Talmud. So the Sabbatians said like this: it's impossible for everybody to be good. It's easy to be bad. So they turned around the Torah and they said, if you do an evil deed, then you will use up the energy of the universe, and it'll collapse, and you'll force Messiah to come because you will have used up all the evil in the world. So whenever they engage in an orgy, they would make a bracha, and every day they would figure out a way to do as many sins as possible. Like if you eat chaylev, you're chayav karet. In other words, if you eat fat, according to the Torah, you're to be excommunicated from your people. So they would eat fat that was prohibited, non-kosher fat, from a kosher animal, which is chaylev, which is in that category, like eating blood from a kosher animal. So
they would dafka do the opposite.
They do the opposite
in order to hasten the
coming of the Messiah. After Shabtai Tzvi died, one of the most powerful Sabbatean cults, as they were called, was a transformation of the Dogme, the most extreme cult, to Europe through an insidious person by the name of Jacob Frank. He died in 1791. Now, the Frankists started to spread and take over entire communities and make them satanic. And you can actually trace a line historically, which I do in my book, to the CFR from Shabtai Tzvi, and another organization called the Illuminati, which was founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt. And they were involved also in the French Revolution, which is also well documented.
So what you're saying is that there really does exist a new world order, that it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy.
Right, and Professor Katz wrote a book called The Jews and Freemasonry, which gives a history of the interface between Jews and some of the cults that derived out of Shabtai Tzvi. But the next big cult that came from Shabtai Tzvi after the Dogme organization, which was in Turkey, the next big cult were the Frankists, as I mentioned with Jacob Frank. So Jacob Frank, the Vad Arba Ratzah, the Council of Four Lands, wanted to deal with Frank, and they decided to have a big excommunication on the 20th of Sivan 250 years ago. And there they made the following rulings. They said everybody that is a Frankist is to be excommunicated.
From the Jewish people.
From the Jewish people, bastards to the 10th generation, is what it said. And
damn, 10 generations.
People, because the Frankists were into Kabbalah, they prohibited the study of Kabbalah until you were 30 or 40 years old and you had a belly full, as they said, full of Talmud. Only then could you study the Kabbalah.
Right.
And they said they're women or whores. And they're hereby excommunicated from our people to the 10th generation.
This is what the Council of Four Lands labeled the Frankists,
right,
because they so deviated from Judaism and all that Judaism holds to be true and righteous. These people went off and made basically their own deformed religion, and so the Jews wanted nothing to do with them. They kicked them out.
That abracadabra being a Jewish phrase of I create what I speak, or I speak what I create, or whatever it is. That is actually, I saw someone say that modern understanding of magic and ancient understanding of magic are two different things. Ancient people saw magic as like, if you just imagined, like, I don't know, a set of drawers or set of shelves, and then created it, technically that's magic. It's something that was in your head that you then created in the actual world. That's magic. So yeah, the abracadabra thing kind of makes sense to what that person was saying about how the ancients view magic compared to how we view magic.
That is correct.
Are there non-Jews that joined this Sabbatian cult?
No, non-Jews did not join the Sabbatian cult, but the non-Jews did join the Illuminati.
The Frankist movement was a front organization for Illuminists, believing that one achieves purity through sin. Thus, we find Frankists practicing sex orgies. While such ideas were foreign to Orthodox Jews, they were not strange or alien to the predominantly Gentile Illuminist movement. As a matter of fact, in his writings, the Illuminist Adam Weishaupt called for the abolition of all ordered forms of religion, and that syncs up perfectly with what the Frankists were trying to achieve. The story of the Frankists begins really not with the founder of the movement, Jacob Frank, but with Sabbatai Zevi or Zivi, a claimed Messiah and Kabbalist.
And he was a Turkish fellow, is that right?
That's correct. Sabbatai Zivi founded the Donmi sect, a group which became rather large in the Ottoman Empire. And Sabbatai does not appear to have been insane. He knew what he was doing when he made this declaration of being
Messiah. This was in the 1600s, was it?
Yes, that's correct. The rationale put forward was that because Sabbatai was the Messiah, he had the authority to abolish the religious observances of traditional Judaism. And he began moving in this direction by declaring the the 10th of Tevet, no longer a day of fasting, but a day of feasting. Sabbatai claimed that he had been promised a consort in a dream, and that consort was to be an unchaste woman. And there was a woman that was living in Livorno named Sarah that became his choice pick. She was a prostitute who claimed that she was to become the bride of the Messiah. So she was brought to Cairo and married to Sabbatai and fell into the role quite nicely and helped to confirm his messiahship, at least in the eyes of his followers. This group taught Jacob Frank. We see that there is these heretical beliefs with Jacob Frank from his earliest days, that he was probably brought up in it from childhood on. So Jacob Frank began holding secret meetings in 1755 where he preached ideas that were antithetical to the Orthodox Judaism. One gathering in a place called Landskron was so egregious, and just so much outrageous nonsense went on there, that it drew the attention of the authorities in the area. It drew the attention of the rabbis, and as a result, a rabbinical court was held in Satanov, a village where many of Frank's followers confessed to all sorts of outrageous sexual immorality. Frank had to leave Podolia in, I believe it was 1756, because of the mixing of sex orgies with religion. And Jacob Frank would declare himself to be a direct successor to Sabbatai Zevi. And he would tell his followers to convert to Christianity as a kind of a phase, a transitional kind of phase, to the future religion, which was supposed to be a Messianic religion, with, of course, Jacob Frank sitting at the forefront of it.
Wait, now there was a huge amount of occultism and
trying to make himself
and
Muhammad.
Masonicism within Frankist cult.
That's correct.
Today, royals, politicians, banksters, and businessmen form the inner circle of the Sabbatean Frankist elite. They live secret, two-faced lives, sometimes posing as religious Jews or Christians or Islamists. Modern Zionism is rooted in the unholy alliance of Frank, Weishaupt, and Rothschild. It has infiltrated world religions, taken over Freemasonry, engineered wars and revolutions, and turned nations and citizens into their debt slaves worldwide. Unfortunately, Muslims, Christians, and Jews do not recognize their common enemy because that enemy is invisible. It hides within their own religions.
But like the first non-Jewish Messiah, Cyrus, who was chosen to assist the Jews in re-establishing themselves in the land of Israel after their 70-year exile in Babylon, the current non-Jewish Messiah was chosen to be of service to the Jewish people and the Jewish Messiah. President Trump's right ear was grazed in a symbolic gesture of Exodus 21:6, where the Torah states that a servant who wants to remain with his master needs to have his right ear pierced. Trump was designated as God's servant and anointed one, just like Cyrus the Great almost 2,400 years ago. We have clarified in several videos that the absolute deadline for the redemption is by the end of the Jewish year 5787, which corresponds to October 2nd, 2027. 1,167 days.
No man knows the end days. No man knows the day it will happen. Jesus says that himself. Not the followers, not the angels, not the Son, only the Father. Also, I don't got nothing against President Trump. This isn't an attack on President Trump. I don't like people making conclusions out of biblical things. I don't think you're meant to make conclusions. It's meant to make you think, saner, I guess. But yeah, I didn't like that. you're trying to make Trump some anointed messiah. Don't do that. And also to say that, yeah, the day has been marked. It hasn't. It hasn't. No man knows the day. Only the Father.
Today. Thus, the redemption will surely occur during Donald Trump's tenure. And I have good reason to believe Donald Trump was chosen to be the one to redeem the sins of Esav through offering his assistance in rebuilding the Holy Temple on the Temple Mount and establishing the Jewish kingdom over all of mankind in Jerusalem. Perhaps it is no accident that the numeric value of Donald Trump in Hebrew is the same as Messiah, son of David, Mashiach ben David, 424. However, Donald Trump is mistaken if he thinks he was chosen to make America great again. He will no doubt do a lot of good things to strengthen our economy, protect our borders, and allow religious freedom to flourish. But America will never become a great country on its own, because Esav's days are numbered. All our elite institutions and centers of power and influence are rotten through and through. The majority of Americans under 30 who are college...
This is a message to the Jewish people. You need to tell people like him to shut up. You can't say that to the Americans. It's what Zelensky said to Trump. You will feel it. You can't threaten. If you look at the story of Winston Churchill, he was half American. I think his mum was American. He knew American culture. He knew American people. He knew American spirit. It's why you will never ever hear a speech of Churchill outright asking Americans for help. He would say things like, America, give us the tools, we'll finish the job. He understood that America respects strength, and they are a great nation by themselves. That's almost disrespectful to say to America that you cannot be a great nation without Israel. Actually, the opposite is true. Really. There's no other country, and to be honest, is why the Islamic world has such a beef with America, and why America is the crown jewel of fall into the Islamic world, is because they see America and Israel as buddy, and the reason why Jews are back in the Middle East. They don't want Jews there. But let's be real. America gives $3.8 billion a year to Israel. Now, Israel buys things off of them, but what with America's money? It's kind of, you're not actually giving anything back to America. You'd have a point if Israel was giving America 3.8 billion. That's why you can't go into this thing where you can't be great. America's ain't gonna like that. I can see why America's is upset with, like, and another word of advice to Jewish people: if you want to change the mood of the public, don't use Jews. You have. That's why Charlie Kirk's death was such a blow to Israel, because he's not a Jew, and he was fiercely defendant of Jews and Israel, and made great points. And the fact that he wasn't Jewish went a long way. Because if you're Jewish and you're from Israel, of course you're going to big up Israel. But you can't say that to the Americans. You can't say you'll never be a great nation on your own. Like, that's a crazy statement to say. And then to expect them to come and help you is, yeah, it's insulting almost. It's basically saying you ain't shit without us. It's like, and it's so not true. And Americans know it's not true. That's the other thing. You're not convincing Americans of that. Americans know their country stands on its own if it needed to, without a shadow of a doubt.
Educated and who are the future leaders of America support the vicious monsters of Hamas rather than the holy and courageous soldiers of the IDF. No human being, even Donald Trump, can reverse this. No.
Again, I agree with what he said. Why are people supporting a terrorist organization other than an official military? Why are they supporting Hamas, who are a terrorist organization? over that. However, you like, of course, you're going to say that. You're Jewish. That's what I mean. You need non Jews to take up your cause. And I don't know if you've got that many non Jews who, one, like Jews, or two, even care. I would say that that makes up most of the non Jewish people. There's some YouTubers who aren't Jews, who are Christians and believe the same as what Charlie did, that scripturally. But this is what I mean. I agree with the statement he just said. Evil Hamas compared to holy IDF. I agree with that statement. However, hearing a Jewish person say it, even as someone who believes the statement, I roll my eyes internally, because of course you're going to say that. Of course you're going to say that. You are Jewish and you want Israel to win. Like, yeah.
The greatness of America does not lie in its own success. America will be great when the Messiah comes. And the leader of this country, on behalf of all the good people in this country, will humbly present himself to the Jewish Messiah.
Which Messiah? This is the thing, the Jews aren't talking about Jesus when they say the Messiah. They don't accept Jesus as their Messiah. What they mean is a a Messiah that's going to do what the Jewish scriptures said. Jesus doesn't match that, because he didn't. There's no political thing with Jesus. He didn't get into a position of political power. He didn't restore the people of Israel. This is all things said to be the Messiah. It's also all things said to be what the Antichrist will do. But the Jews are obsessed with their Messiah. That's what they're not talking about Jesus. They're talking about when the Messiah comes, the Jewish Messiah, which definitionally in the Bible, anything that goes away from Jesus being the Messiah is Antichrist. But what they're naming as the Jewish Messiah is the Antichrist. Like in the Bible, that is what it is, and there will be 7 years of flourishing and peace, and yeah, yeah. And he had to throw another blow at America. Like, this is what I mean. I watch Jewish people, and they say things, and I think, you're not doing yourselves favors. I want you to succeed, and I just watch and think, you're really not helping yourselves out here. You can't say that to America. You can't say to America, you are not great without us. It's that the audacity in that is.
Ask him to accept the United States of America into a new alliance of countries who accept the leadership of the Messiah. A new United Nations will replace the current cesspool that goes by that fraudulent name. A real United Nations, united to serve God, led by the Messiah and based in Jerusalem. And my feeling is that the United States under President Trump will be the first nation to join. The meaning of the MAGA movement needs to be adjusted. America was a great idea, but it was never realized. When the American government under FDR chose not to lift a finger to save the Jews from Hitler.
I just listen to these people. I think you've got no idea what you're not helping your cause by saying stuff like this to America. Oh, it was a great idea. Do you know what? Ricky Gervais has a joke about Gandhi saying that. What do you think of the Western world? And Gandhi says, "Oh, it's a good idea." And Ricky Gervais is like, pretentious twat. He's like, if I was that journalist, I'd have said, I'm not putting that, give me a real answer. And he'd go, I think it's a good idea. And he'd go, yeah, good idea, is it? Give me back them national health specs you've got on. Give me back your glasses. Give me back the medicine you got. Like, yeah, it was a miracle. Oh, God. It's like, yeah, you can't say that, bro. And that is the Antichrist, what he's describing. This is what I'm saying. And this is the thing, they have a point, the Jews, that Jesus didn't fulfill what the Jewish scriptures say he was going to fulfill. The political power, the restoring Israel, all of these things. But you can't help but think that when God come to earth as Jesus, he, for the first time in his life, had a human perspective on everything. He's all knowing and all understanding, but he'd not actually experienced human life. I think, could that be why he was different when he actually become? He had more of a, like Jesus, without a doubt, is a lot kinder and softer. And is it because he came and had a deeper sympathy for man and man's struggle once he actually become man? That the second he become man and grew up and realized things are not quite what he thought on his planet, do you know what I mean? That's why he doesn't fulfill the scriptures thing. Um, but that's, I'm listening to him here. Good God. I saw you can't talk to a country like America like that. And this is what I mean. That, yeah, yeah. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. That's this part.